I'm Julia Sondu, showing you where development is happening. Please come and join us. Israel says it found hostage traces in Hamas tunnel. Fighting rages in central Gaza. Post-war plans. Hostage traces discovered in Hamas tunnel. The Israeli military said on Wednesday it had found traces of hostages in an underground tunnel in the southern city of Khan Yunis in Gaza, where fighting continues. Journalists were escorted by the military to the tunnel, hidden under a tin hut in a residential yard surrounded by the ruins of destroyed homes and streets. Inside the tunnel, which was reportedly hot and humid and whose walls were lined with electrical wire, the Israeli military said it had found evidence the hostages had been there, including their DNA. Hostages were held here in this tunnel system, said Daniel Hagari, the Israeli army's chief spokesman. The military offered no details on what exactly was found in the tunnel, nor did it identify any of the hostages who had allegedly been there. Hagari only said they were held in the tunnel in difficult condition, but did not say whether they were alive. Several of the Israeli hostages freed during a ceasefire in November said they were held inside Hamas tunnels. Israel says Hezbollah struck sensitive air traffic base in the north and warns of another war. Hezbollah has struck an air traffic control base in northern Israel, the Israeli military said Sunday, and warned of another war with the Iran-backed militant group. The increase in fighting across the border with Lebanon as Israel battles Hamas militants in Gaza gave new urgency to U.S. diplomatic efforts as Secretary of State Antony Blinken prepared to visit Israel on his latest Mideast tour. This is a conflict that could easily metastasize, causing even more insecurity, Blinken told reporters after talks in Qatar, a key mediator. The escalation of cross-border fighting between Israel and Hezbollah has complicated a U.S. push to prevent a regional conflict. The Israeli military said Hezbollah fire hit the sensitive air traffic control base on Mount Meron on Saturday, but air defenses were not affected because backup systems were in place. It said that no soldiers were hurt and all damage will be repaired. Nonetheless, it was one of the most serious attacks by Hezbollah in the months of fighting that has accompanied Israel's war in Gaza and forced tens of thousands of Israelis to evacuate communities near the Lebanese border. Hezbollah described its rocket barrage as an initial response to the targeted top Hamas leader in a Hezbollah stronghold in Beirut last week, which is presumed to have been carried out by Israel. The Israeli military chief of staff, Lieutenant Colonel Herzi Halevi, said military pressure on Hezbollah, a Hamas ally, was rising and it would either be effective or we will get to another war. Military spokesman Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari asserted that Israel's focus on Hezbollah's elite Radwan force was pushing it away from the border. Israel has mostly sought to limit the fighting in its north. Hezbollah's military capabilities are far superior to those of Hamas. But Israeli leaders have said their patience is wearing thin, and that if the tensions cannot be resolved through diplomacy, they are prepared to use force. I suggest that Hezbollah learn what Hamas has already learned in recent months, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu told his cabinet. We are determined to defend our citizens and to return the residents of the north safely to their homes. Lower-intensity fighting along Israel's northern border broke out when Hezbollah began firing rockets shortly after the October 7 Hamas attack on southern Israel triggered the war in Gaza and taking some 250 people hostage. Hezbollah has said its attacks aim to ease pressure on Gaza. In a joint news briefing with Blinken, Qatar's government acknowledged that the senior Hamas leader in Lebanon could affect the complicated negotiations for the potential release of more hostages held by Hamas in Gaza, but we are continuing our discussions with the parties and trying to achieve as soon as possible an agreement. Inside Gaza, the war against the militant group entered its fourth month Sunday. The Israeli military has signaled that it has wrapped up major combat in northern Gaza, saying it has completed dismantling Hamas military infrastructure there. Now it presses its offensive in the south, where most of Gaza's 2.3 million Palestinians are squeezed into smaller areas. Netanyahu insists the war will not end until the objectives of eliminating Hamas, getting Israel's hostages returned, and ensuring that Gaza won't host to Israel are met. Biden administration officials have urged Israel to wind down its blistering air and ground offensive and shift to more targeted attacks against Hamas leaders. Israel cannot rule out tunnels under West Bank settlements, expert says after years of hearing about the tunnels in the north and south. Dr. Daphne Richmond-Barak, an expert in the field, explains in an interview with Maariv why this is nothing less than an oversight. The seam zone area is made up of towns that lie between separation markers in the West Bank, walls, security fences, etc., and the Green Line, including both settlements and Palestinian villages. If estimates include East Jerusalem, this amounts to about 8.5% of the West Bank. In recent weeks, similar complaints have been forwarded to Israeli security forces by seam zone residents. In the 2 years before the discovery of the tunnels in the north, there were many residents who complained, but at first they were not believed, recalled Dr. Richmond-Barak, a senior lecturer at the Lauder School of Government, Diplomacy and Strategy at Reichman University, who recognizes a great similarity between the various arenas. Having gained substantial experience in researching Israel's underground threats, she is convinced that the publications in the media concerning the region of Emek Hefer and the Sharon point to a failure of the security forces. Once we realized that our enemies are using the underground in all sorts of ways, we had to anticipate and prepare. How can this be a surprise to anyone at this point, when we know that there are tunnels in Gaza, in Lebanon, and the entire Middle East? We also know that in Jenin, underground infrastructure was found 6 months ago. If they are digging inside Jenin, why wouldn't they try to dig under the Green Line now? If there is evidence of digging inside Jenin, why wouldn't we find tunnels in Bat Hefer? The pattern is being repeated in each of the arenas. As soon as we see activity in one arena, we need to be proactive and realize that we may see the same activity in other arenas as well. How complex is the excavation in this area? Are there significant differences between the types of soil? If you have to rank the level of difficulty according to the type of soil, then you can say that the soil that is easiest to dig in is the sandy soil of the Gaza Strip. In the West Bank, digging is more complex than in the Gaza Strip, and on the Lebanese border, it is the most difficult to dig. But what is important to say in this context is that we know even if the type of soil is a little more difficult to dig, it still doesn't stop the enemy. This is the end of our program today. See you on Intervlog same time tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe to my channel and press the bell icon to get new video updates. Thank you for watching Intervlog. Thank you.